Welcome to another exciting episode of TeqTalk, where we discuss data, AI, and innovation across multiple industries. Today, our talk is going to be very interesting because I have a visionary, a leader with me, and his name is Chandra Nayak. Chandra, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
To set the stage, would like to know a little bit more about you, from where you started, what are you doing right now?
From a professional perspective, just a brief introduction about myself.
Yeah.
I am Chandra Nayak for short. My entire name is pretty long. It's about 20 characters.
Yeah, you can tell that.
Yeah, if you go to LinkedIn and you'll search for Myra Chandra Mohan Nayak, that's how you'll find me. And so I've been at Snowflake as a principal partner architect for the last 3.5 years. I work with some of our major SaaS partners, Salesforce, Microsoft, and SAP as a architect who builds integrations between the two platforms, works with the go-to-marketing teams of both sides in coming up with what are the use cases that these integrations are very meaningful? What are the business value that we can unlock through these integrations? Then go ahead and build that vision into a demo and talk at various conferences. And influence these partners to work closely with Snowflake. That's been my charter here. Pretty happy with what we have achieved in terms of our relationship with Salesforce and Microsoft. And we are on a new relationship with SAP. Fairly soon, we will be rolling out something there. And prior to coming to Salesforce, I was a principal engineer at Salesforce on Salesforce platform.
Okay, that's very impressive. Thank you so much, Chandra. And I'm pretty sure that you must be enjoying the current developments happening around Snowflake and different other technology landscape, right? So many things going on every day. So let's start with foundation. Let's start with the basic. We have seen that unstructured data, right? So if you talk about Snowflake was natively having structured data a couple of years back.
Right.
Then now it is beautifully storing and keeping and managing unstructured data like your PDFs, videos, audios, and a lot more. So I would like to understand from you on what are the recent developments happening from the unstructured data side from Snowflake, and also how are customers leveraging this feature?
Yeah, I think as you said, Snowflake did really well with structured data, right? Started as a data warehousing company, we morphed into a data cloud company because we can easily collaborate, share data with partners, vendors, all of it from a structured data perspective. Now, especially after OpenAI came into the world, there's been a lot of interest in unstructured data because if you think about it, it's still contracts that are on unstructured data. There is everything that we perceive is through images, which is all unstructured, right? So there's a lot of interest, and finally there is an easier way to manage all of this unstructured data. And Snowflake now provides. It's going to come up at Summit. We will see a lot of announcements happening where you can actually get unstructured data from Microsoft SharePoint, Google Drive, all of them flowing into Snowflake. And Snowflake will try and understand what is the meaning of it, gets the permissions of who owns these files, who has access to these files, all coming into Snowflake.
Right.
So now you are able to ask questions to Snowflake saying, hey, what is this contract? When does the contract end? Right? You are asking a natural language question. You don't really know where it is stored. You don't care.
You
just want to
the query.
Yeah, you don't have to write the query. You have a natural language question you want to ask. When does this contract with this particular customer end? What are the terms? Right? It's a pretty complex question.
Yeah.
Traditionally, you'll have to go figure out which folder it is and then open it up. Now, you can ask this question directly to Snowflake. Snowflake will take the responsibility of figuring out which file has that information. It'll extract that and it'll give you a citation as to where it found this information. And you can use cases we are seeing with customers are like, they don't really, when you trying to make a decision about something, you don't think it, hey, is this structured data or this is unstructured data?
Yeah.
You just need an answer for making a particular decision. So you ask the question, the system takes the burden of figuring out whether this is structured or unstructured and generating the necessary response. That's what you will see Snowflake delivering.
Yeah, that's I think it's the future, and we all are waiting for this kind of system to come up, which will ease a lot of tasks and save a lot of time.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of productivity gains across sales, the reps becoming more faster, keeping the right data.
Yeah.
We see a lot of use cases coming, especially with the Salesforce Service Cloud, for example, right? Agents are being used to ask questions about anything like your booking, anything you forgot. You can ask these agents. The agents need to figure out where it exists and talk to the necessary systems and get a response.
Yeah, I think if the data is aligned at one place, and it's nice data, it becomes much easier to take action. So I think in coming 6 months or so, I don't want to ask you the deadline, but the future is here. So it is going to be very interesting, I must say that.
Yeah.
So let's talk something about AI and BI, right? Sometimes we hear that AI is going to replace BI, but actually it's not true. Snowflake is beautifully handling both of them together, and I would like to know from you that how it is happening in depth behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think it's a very timely conversation because when this AI hype was there, everybody was thinking like, oh, all the dashboards that we have in Tableau or Power BI are no more relevant. People are just going to talk to data. But when you talk to decision makers, you need some metrics that actually define what are your goals as a company, how are you trending towards those goals, and that data will still be visualized in dashboards. The unstructured data and the AI part of it is like, hey, okay, this dashboard shows me that, we are trending towards our goal, but you have follow-up questions. For example, something happens around the world in terms of like there is a war or there is a canal being blocked or there is a tariff. Now you want to ask, how is it going to impact my revenue projections with something like this happening, right? Now that cannot be structured. And this data lives in like many different unstructured formats. You need to have access to that data, bring it into the model and be able to generate a response. That's where we see AI and BI combining together to make more insightful decisions and decisions that happen in real time. The dashboards of the previous world are like, they're carved in the stone in the sense like you already said, okay, this is what I want to see and build those dashboards, but they do not change on a regular basis. But now with AI combining, you have the ability to have real-time decisions because you have ability to get real-time data, to process it in real time with your structured data as well and generate very meaningful insights.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense completely. What are your takes on SaaS companies, those who are, if you see a lot of SaaS companies are getting integrated with the data companies, right? So majorly, if you say Snowflake as well, it has got good partnership with different companies
SaaS
like
vendors,
SaaS vendors like Salesforce, Microsoft. So where is this heading to?
Yeah, I think this is probably something that you have started seeing more recently where these two companies or these industries or software platforms are coming together, right? SaaS companies have always had this, what we call a system of engagement because they engage with the end customer, right? For example, if you think about Salesforce, you're engaging with the sales representatives, you're engaging with call center agents. So Salesforce has that touch point with marketers and so on. Similarly, when you go to the Microsoft Power Platform, the end users could be people in their manufacturing floor who are entering what processes they're working on right now. Now, data companies have a lot of data that is coming through operational systems, and they have the ability to process that data at a very efficient manner and run various models. And the two worlds remained in two separate kind of like words, right? But customers had these complex integrations and very limited ability to actually drive a process within an application from data because of all the barriers between these two sides, right? You have a set of people managing data, you have a different vendor for data, you have a different vendor for
too many systems, basically.
Too many systems, too many different people managing. and different vendors not talking to each other properly. Now we see that changing, especially with the OpenAI coming up and ability to talk to data and ability to have the data drive processes. Now the data companies and SaaS companies are coming together. One is system of engagement, which interacts with the people. The other is system of intelligence, because that's where you are looking at all the data across your business and you're running your models, artificial intelligence, which tells you what to do, but what needs to be done essentially happens in your system, which the end user is engaging with, right? So you want intelligence in the flow of your work. If your intelligence is in a different system, but you are using an app to operate, then you are not again connecting the two. Now we see more and more these relationships building between SaaS companies and data companies, so that you can actually make the end user more productive. You can understand the end user in natural language. And I think this is going to change not just the end user productivity, but we also see that the way business processes are done today, like SaaS companies have like a traditionally hardbound data model, right? You have to fit your business processes to those data models. But as things rapidly change, you cannot fit everything in the data model that a SaaS company gives. You need to have external data to drive your decisions. That's where this
the
data
system
companies
basically talking to each other so that you seamlessly work together.
And it's not just two systems or systems within an organization. Now there's a lot more collaboration that happens between your partners, your vendors, your supply chain across the other part of the world. You need to bring all of that in near real time to make more effective decisions. That's where the data companies that have access to this data have mechanisms to bring data from different types of different systems, different velocity. They can actually power the SaaS applications more effectively.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what are the latest development in the partnership between Snowflake and Salesforce? Zero copy was one of the things which happened last year, I believe. So what is more happening around it?
Yeah, I think it's a very conversation we are having now, because a lot of, I'm talking to industry people from supply chain to banking to insurance companies. They want to figure out, hey, if agentic platforms can deliver productivity, how do I go about doing it, right? Where do I deploy my agents? How do I make sure that they're giving the right response to the end user? And it's also managing the privacy of the data, whether that particular person can see that data. And secondly, whether given you have what we call as like your system of engagement or your flow of work happens in these applications, right? For example, if you think about Salesforce, the customers want to, let's say, for example, think about somebody checking in a high-end resort, and you have questions about, hey, what do I get if I get into this place? What is like traditionally, what is offered here? And let's say after you check out, you forgot something in that resort, and you want to go back and ask like, hey, I forgot this. Was it found? Now, traditionally, this involves a lot of people, processes, and all of that. Now, what we are thinking about with like a agents integration is a platform like Snowflake can actually process images coming from the cameras in this resort in different parts of the resort, right? You have cameras. They generate the images, and you can consume those images. You can process that, understand, for example, in a pool, something really valuable was left. Right? You capture the image, you store it in Snowflake, process it, understand what brand it is, what color it is, and so on. Using AI, now you can do all of that. You store that information. Now the end user is going to go ask in Salesforce saying, hey, I checked in this resort, was something found of this, right? Now that question can come to Snowflake. Snowflake can figure out, okay, I found a match that we found something like a watch or something like a passport. And we can send a response back to the end user saying, okay, we found this. Can you give us, can you tell what color it is, right? You have now with the ability to multi-turn chats, you can actually go back and forth between this application. Just like, you know, when I lose something, I go and ask somebody in the lost and found team, he's going to ask you what questions. Now we can do that at scale with these agents interacting between various applications. So we are actually having a lot of conversations myself with different customers in different industries. For example, in banking, you have advisors who are interacting with wealth advisors interacting with their prospects or customers, and they use Salesforce as a system when they actually track these customers. But they want their decisions to be driven with all these ML models that are running in Snowflake to tell what is that I need to offer this person, what is the risk that this person is associated with. And they want to have this kind of ability to ask this question in the language that they are comfortable with. And this is where we see the two agents being able to talk to each other and process the necessary information, give a response. These kind of things are customers exploring, and we are working on bringing these to market.
Yeah, this looks very, very exciting, actually, especially the use case which you have given first. And I think if such kind of use cases are being solved, it's going to be such relief, right? And in real time, you're able to see without involving a lot of people, you're able to fetch information. And one of the things you mentioned was regarding the agents deployment, right? This is again a critical thing which a lot of organizations are talking about right now. So in this competitive edge, building of agents is not only the challenge. It is also a challenge that where it has to be deployed and how it has to be deployed. So if you talk about latency versus proximity, some says that deploy your agent wherever your data is residing. Some says that wherever your actions are being taken, deploy your agents there. So from your vantage point, and I know it is going to be dependent on a lot of factors and use case, but from your vantage point, would like to understand that how you would architect this agent deployment when the decision making place and data origin and model building all are in different places and do not coexist.
I think it's a very thoughtful and again, very timely question, because customers are being bombarded with various vendors saying, hey, we have an agent, right? We are offering an agent deployed on us. Now, some of the key decisions that the decision makers have to do is, hey, think about a end user who's using an agent needs to ask a question to make a decision. But that person may not be skilled to write a query, write a program, but he needs an agent. May not even have access to a data platform. All they have access is to an app, right? So there, the agents will be deployed in the end user applications like SaaS platforms. The agents will be deployed there so that they can understand what this person is asking. And then the agent is intelligent enough to understand whether that question can be responded with the data that's already in the SaaS platform or whether it has to go to another system. That's where you see the agent-to-agent protocols coming up, where the two agents can hand tasks and get responses back, right? So that is one thing that's happening where the agents will be deployed in the end-user applications. But there will also be a set of agents, what we call as headless agents. And these headless agents will be essentially, they do not interact with the end user, but they have to check for example, cleaning of the data, completion of the data. These kind of agents will operate on the data by themselves, and they will trigger actions based on a condition being happening or not. For example, if we were talking about the resort use case, right? I checked into a resort, I went out, I forgot something. Think about a use case where I have a very critical medical device and I, for whatever reason, I left behind and I reached a certain distance and I haven't realized I've lost that device, but it's very important for my health. Now, think about a system where when the camera captures that device and AI processes it, figures out what the device is, that data platform, which understands what this device is, has the necessary intelligence to tell the SaaS application, saying, hey, send a message to this particular person who lived in this particular room or stayed in this particular room, has this device left behind, right? Now, proactively, the system is intelligent enough, the agents are intelligent enough to reach out to the end person saying,
in such case, you're deploying the agent in the data platform where the data originates.
Exactly.
And how about when the data is also in silos? It is not integrated. What are we?
So that's a very valid question. Now, I was just coming out from a call with a banking customer. The banking customer has a lot of operational data in their data platforms, in this case, Snowflake. and then they have like a CRM system, and then they have internal applications. Now, the internal application data is not going into the CRM. The CRM data does not go into the internal applications, but the people who use internal applications need access to CRM data for their own planning, right? Now, what we see these customers coming to us saying, hey, we want to deploy these agents, but we don't want to make copies of data here, copies of data there, and then build integrations between these platforms, because it becomes too complicated from a cost perspective, and privacy becomes a major concern. Actually, so these customers are thinking these are our constraints. Privacy is very important. Irrespective, you use humans, agents, privacy is important, right? So what they are asking us is like, how do we make sure that there is one copy of the data, it is well governed, we can audit what happened there. We want to know who accessed, what was the response given. All of this are important. So what we see now is having a data platform is where you should have all these policies saying, hey, this is the data that is accessible. This row is accessible only for this person. If that person is querying this from Americas or this California, given all these GDPR rules, so you can put all these rules to where the data sits. So customers will bring this data to the data platform, which is where they'll put all the data governance policies, and that should have a strong integration to all the SaaS applications or the applications which the end users are going to have, because that's where the people are going to ask questions. So let the questions come to the data, let the data generate the necessary response, and then the response should go back.
So the basically data should be there at one place, wherever data is needed for interaction and providing the outcomes. So
just to add there, the data being at one place. Now, traditionally, we have been having these API integrations, pushing data, ETL tools, and all of that. Now, more interestingly, if you have seen about the zero copy conversations happening, data can be shared at a high scale, given all the open table formats like Iceberg and Delta, for that matter. And in fact, Iceberg is becoming a more common standard across multiple companies now. Microsoft, Salesforce, Snowflake, Oracle, Google, all of them accepting Iceberg as an open source table format. Now you can share data in whichever application it is. You can share the data and you can bring your query system to that. So you don't have to move, again, large amounts of data, right? So it's a very useful pattern, especially as more and more data gets generated within all these applications. And you want intelligence where you want it. You don't really care where it sits, but you just need the right answer. We see that becoming a bigger pattern.
Yeah. So just to summarize, for example, an enterprise, right? They might have Snowflake, they might have Salesforce Data Cloud, Databricks, and all of that. So instead of getting all the data from multiple systems to your one database, right? This zero copy is enabled across all. And whenever the query is being fetched from external system or agent is asking any question, which is again a query, so it can be one core database and the other databases will be aligned or kind of, integrated with it in terms of zero copy, and seamlessly they can fetch the information and provide it back to the agent. Is it really happening in the real time, or it's just on talks and a lot of futuristic things are there?
Yeah. I would say like there's a lot of movement towards it, and it's a very valid question. Like, has the industry completely moved to it? We do see larger companies actually wanting to move towards that, right? Having open table formats. But these open table formats are not like they're evolving right now. And there's a significant movement that has happened with Iceberg. And customers are exploring that. Maybe about 10% of the customers have actually said, okay, we're going to put our money into the Iceberg bucket and, let all systems share through that. But there are still like operational overheads that the customer has to take with Iceberg, right? You are responsible for security, you are responsible for role control and all of that, rollback access controls and all of that. So that's where customers have to evaluate like, hey, having this vendor independence is important for me, or am I going to reduce my cost and I'm going to trust this vendor, and you're going to use this for good performance, good security, and I'm still going to ask for other companies to share the data, or I'm going to use the traditional ETL tools. This will all live together for a period of time.
Yeah.
But I do see open source table formats is a way forward, but it's probably years to come.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think it also depends on use cases, right? If somebody is going to start with a basic use case where they need limited amount of data, probably they can build it. But if it is like a major use case where you include a lot of entities from different other sources, so it might require a lot of integrations and strategies as well. So I think it's very interesting space now. A lot of development is happening from the database side, because data is the core of everything. If we have data ready,
True.
You can do good agents, you can create, deploy wherever you want. But the basics, what I think is probably after a decade or so, we will not even talk about good data, bad data.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. That is my vision, because right now we are talking a lot, and there are a lot of strategies are also being started, right, by other organizations and hyperscalers as well. So maybe in a decade or 5 years of time, all organizations would set up with at least basic core data at one place, seamless integration happening with different sets, like how you mentioned. So this is a discovery time and kind of a POC time. A lot of organizations have started doing the POC.
Yeah.
So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. I think just to comment on this, like, hey, is the good data, bad data? I think there are a couple of things that will influence work in that space. One is this headless agents that we were talking about. They can be tasked to clean the data, right? It doesn't have to be a human being going and running a dashboard and then looking, oh, this date doesn't look right, right? For example, all the dates look like 1900s.
Yeah.
Today, that like somebody runs a dashboard, that's when somebody realizes you could actually have these agents clean up the data, process the data under the hood before it gets consumed by the end user. So that will speed up the data cleaning process. And other thing is also these agents, when they actually, as more customers adopt these agents and more data gets discovered. Today, most people don't ask questions because they think it's too difficult to get an answer, right? But once you find it's easier to get an answer, you will have a lot more questions, right? That's lot more questions is going to make a lot more data visible, which today companies might just keep it under the hood because it's expensive to manage it, expensive to ask questions to it. Yeah. When it becomes cheaper, when it becomes more automated fashion, you're going to use more and more of this data to drive more impactful decisions. And that's where we see, for example, if you think about your food reviews, right? Reviews data, there's a lot of people giving reviews. Most of it is probably like, it's not high value data, but it's still relevant for your business. If it can be processed cheaply, if it can influence your product, then you're going to make use of it, right? So there I see, as agents become more intelligent, as you drive the price down, you're going to ask, your answers will be coming through the data that sits around various systems, accessible to agents.
I think this is a very, very valid point. So right now things are getting developed. So that is why I believe the things are expensive. It is not cheap. So rightly said that once things will be cheaper, there'll be a lot more experiments and a lot more automations will be done, and that too fearlessly by the organizations, even by the mid-size or small-size organizations, right? Yeah. Okay, that was pretty interesting. So coming back to the future of data and future of developments happening in Snowflake side, if you can share a couple of them, if you're allowed to.
Yeah, I think as you said, AI is a very interesting space, right? Now, some of the announcements that are actually very interesting, even in case of BI, right? You might want to ask, for example, with all this AI multimodal capabilities, you can, as a marketer, for example, I'm giving a use case. If you are going to put this image in this particular fashion, how many people are likely to like it? Okay, that's a marketer question. You can upload an image to Snowflake and say, okay, tell me, what does this image tell? So AI within Snowflake is intelligent enough to understand what is that image. For example, you upload an image of a car, change the light, the shade around the car. It'll figure out that this is a sporty car, most likely to be advertised to a person who likes outdoors. You change the image and say, put the same car behind a building. It'll say, hey, this is a car which actually like still a sporty car, but can also drive in the cities, right? Now the systems are able to understand what an image says, right? And then they can even generate intelligence saying what kind of people it like, right? Yeah. So that can make a marketer a lot more like, it's like an agent sitting with a marketer and guiding him his actions to be lot more productive. Yeah. So you can now ask Snowflake this kind of SQL questions with a single statement saying, okay, hey, look at this image and tell me how many people like this image. You're instead of asking a query which says, okay, load this all unstructured data, convert it into some format, and then ask these questions, Snowflake will allow you to just post an image and say, look at this image, tell me what this image tells, tell me how many people like, tell me the people's background who liked it. All of that with a single statement. Think how powerful it will be for people who...
It is going to be very powerful because for a marketer, they do not need to even have the technical skills.
Yeah.
Right? And without being DBA or database skill, they can just write a prompt and then they can fetch the data. So that is absolutely powerful across all. I think it's going to help even the DBAs, marketers, and all of the other.
It's going to be a lot more easy for people to interact with the data.
How soon these functionalities are going to get live?
You should be able to see this in a couple of months.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. So pretty near future.
Yeah. You will see a lot of announcements about our AI capabilities, how we are making it faster, easier for customers to use AI on Snowflake.
Okay, that's great. Very interesting. Thank you so much, Chandra, for interesting use cases and insights on what is coming up next in a whole database space. So we'll talk again soon on more interesting use cases.
Yeah.
Thank you.